In today's Leeds news, football fans damning VAR verdict, fixture changes are unacceptable, international roundup, victims of a system, and rumour mill stories on Hayden Hackney. Morning folks, hope you're all doing well. Had a lovely weekend here at the Leeds View with your news for Monday the 30th of March. Another month nearly down and done and heading into the run-in for the season. We've got the FA Cup game this weekend coming up for Leeds United, and then we face into the remaining 7-8 games of the season, and we have been doing some prediction videos with lots of other content creators that will hopefully start to have them out in the next couple of days to give you an idea of where everyone's head is at, their logic versus their gut throughout these. And we'll try and bundle a couple together and give you kind of like mini podcasts that will go out in the evenings over the course of the next week. Also, just to give you some news updates on a few bits, Robbie Cook, Leeds under 18 goalkeeper, who has made his debut this season for the under-21s as well, is training with the Australian national side right now and apparently doing very, very well during his training camp there. And the big news that's coming out of football this morning outside of the FSA's VAR report is Roberto De Zerbi looks like there's a handshake agreement in place with Tottenham Hotspur, or at least it looks like he is open, according to Sky Sports, to moving to Spurs for now and the end of the season, which would then definitely help their situation between now and the end of the season. It might change a couple of people's predictions on who finishes where come the end of the year, but keep an eye on that one. We'll talk about it during the podcast this week as well. But we're going to start off today with the FSA's survey on VAR that we've been promoting on X as well as here, along with everybody else over the last couple of months. So as I said, the FSA, or the Football Supporters Association, have been running a poll on VAR and how fans feel about it, and we have seen our fair share of issues with VAR this season, but we're not the only ones. A ton of clubs have had problems with VAR throughout the entire season, the lack of consistency with it, the times where it tries to get involved in the game and other moments when it should get involved but doesn't get involved. And again, we've had apologies from the PGMOL and the independent panel on VAR, but the FSA have ran a pretty in-depth poll on this, and anybody could have got involved in this. We've shared it on the X account regularly over the past few weeks, but the results of it are fairly damning. Over 8,000 people took the poll, and of that 8,000, 50% were match-going fans. So they got a good sentiment of the match-going fans and the TV-watching fans around how they feel about VAR. It's pretty consistent across the board. 92% of fans agreed that VAR has removed the spontaneous joy of goal celebrations. We've talked all season about the fact that VAR has taken the joy out of football, and this is starting to back that up. Of that 92% that agreed with that statement that VAR has taken the joy out of goal celebrations, 82% strongly agreed with that statement. 85% of the match-going fans said that they strongly disagreed that VAR has made watching football more enjoyable. 83% of the TV fans agreed with that as well. So you're looking at over 83% across the board there, 84% on average, that don't believe that VAR has actually improved the Premier League. Now, the Premier League will back up and have backed up their usage of VAR this season. They say it's less intrusive than in other leagues, but the fan sentiment isn't being listened to, at least at this point. When you go on from this, then again, 85% of match-going fans strongly disagreed that VAR decisions are generally resolved at a reasonable amount of time, and 83% of TV viewers also felt that the decisions weren't being decided in a reasonable amount of time. Now, again, the Premier League will say that their average time on making a decision on VAR has dropped this season, but it's still not dropped to what's deemed to be an acceptable level by fans. And it goes back to that clear and obvious error situation. If it's a clear and obvious error, it shouldn't take too long to make a decision. And if you have to watch it for minutes, chances are it's not clear and obvious at all. But it went on again to talk about whether fans preferred to watch football with or without VAR. And 67% of fans said they preferred watching football without VAR. And there are now 34% of people are against the introduction of this new challenge system that has been talked about being brought in, where if there's a VAR call, you can challenge that decision for a longer look, which is just going to lead to more stoppages in the game, or you can even move away from VAR calls and managers can decide when they want to challenge a referee's decision on the pitch and then get VAR involved. So that's not clear either, but it's not great. I mean, we know from the Championship, and there's a lot of people who comment on this channel about the fact that they would much rather watch Leeds United in the Championship because it's just pure, a little bit purer. And if a ball goes in the back of the net, you can celebrate. We're in the Premier League, if the ball goes in the back of the net, the first thing we all do is look for the linesman and then look at the screen to see if the goal is going to stand or not. So, yeah, it's not been ideal. The Premier League, UEFA and FIFA have been involved in discussions over the last month or so about the potential of expanding VAR's remit. And the Premier League, for their part in this, are not super behind this one. They're looking at potentially looking into second yellow cards and corner kicks. Now, we would have probably benefited from the second yellow card decision with Gabby Goodmunson, but overall, it's probably not a good thing to get them more involved than they already are. And on that, 72% of fans surveyed said that they had concerns about the expansion of VAR's remit at this point, which again, if it's not going the way you want it to go, why would you want it to be given more avenues to go down during the course of a match? And the interesting part of all of this was back in 2021, the FSA ran this survey as well, just to get an idea what fans thought about VAR. I think it was being introduced around that time as well. And since then till now, so in the 5 years that have passed, the fan sentiment hasn't changed on VAR, which suggests that the Premier League and the other governing bodies aren't taking the fans' sentiment into consideration. And they should, because ultimately, whether you're watching on TV, whether you're buying a shirt, or whether you're going to a ground, you're funding the teams that are in these leagues more often than not because of the PSR and SCO models, that it's revenue. So there's that part of it. The only positives that come out of this really were on goal line technology. 82% of people felt that goal line technology is something that should be in the game, but that's been black and white. There's no grey area in that outside of Aston Villa not turning it on for the game that kept them in the Premier League. But outside of that, most people believe it's a very positive thing, because it is. It either is a goal or it isn't a goal. It's that clear. It's when you start bringing interpretation into it is where it falls down. There were only 18% of fans who believed that VAR has actually improved the accuracy of refereeing in the Premier League. And that's something we've also seen this season. When you go into the FA Cup as well and have a look at it, we've all talked about it this season, about how referees are now waiting on decisions to be told rather than making the decision themselves. And we've been, again, victims of very poor refereeing standards over the past couple of months, because the referees are waiting on someone in Stockley Park to tell them whether it is or it isn't a goal. So, yeah, it's not been great. The Premier League defend this. They say that it's less intrusive than it is in other leagues, which it is. It is, to be fair to them, but it's still intrusive. So that's still the problem. And again, they defend their times on it. But the bigger picture on this will be, will the Premier League and will the governing bodies listen to fans this time around? Chances are, probably not. But you can let me know your thoughts on this down below, and we'll move on. We're jumping into international roundup, and Out Tanaka played 77 minutes for Japan against Scotland. Really good performance from him. Hit the crossbar in that game as well. Jakobiol at 90 minutes for Slovenia in their 1-0 loss against Hungary. Not his strongest performance, but only conceded the one goal. Luka Matikovic, Leeds under-21 player, played 90 minutes for Northern Ireland under-19s in their 0-0 draw with Romania. And Charlie Crew played 90 minutes for Wales in their under-21 2-0 win against Belarus. Let's get on to fixture changes. We've had our fair share of fixture changes over the course of this season. Burnley is now a Friday night kickoff under the lights at Allen Road. And it's probably the one that we're not too bothered about, because of our record has been pretty decent under the lights. It'll be a fantastic atmosphere, and it's a massive game, a must-win game for Leeds United to stay in the Premier League. But it does put a strain on fans, both travelling fans and local fans. If you're a local fan, you've got to change your work commitments. You've got to change your arrangements that you've got. If it's an away match, trying to get a train back from London at stupid o'clock at night doesn't help you either. If you're an international fan, you're talking about flights being changed or hotels being cancelled, and there's a huge cost on that. I've been victim of that, and in some cases, you have to miss the game completely despite the fact that you've got a ticket for the match. But this season, Leeds United have had 3 games moved to Monday night for Monday Night Football, and the league have got a 5-game limit on that per team. However, Manchester United have been on Monday Night Football 6 times, and Everton have appeared 7 times, and they've had enough of the fixture changes. Everton have issued a statement that says that the fixture changes place an unacceptable strain on supporters, forcing fans to absorb significant additional travel costs, rearrange work and family commitments. They say that fans want to have more consideration when it comes to fixture changes, and Everton said the Premier League and the TV companies have a general disregard for football supporters, and Everton say that they have had a disproportionate amount of games moved for TV this season. But they have, just on the Monday night fixtures alone, we've had 3, they've had 7. The limit is supposed to be 5. Now, from a Leeds perspective, since the fixtures were announced at the start of the season, Leeds have had 12 fixtures moved for TV over the course of the season, which is a huge amount of games to be moved, especially if you're trying to plan any kind of arrangements to get to a game. Again, if it's an away match, the travelling fans with the Leeds travelling support is fantastic. But if you have to go to London and that's been now moved to a late night kickoff on a Saturday, 8 p.m. kickoff, or even a Monday night fixture, getting back is a real pain and really difficult for you to do that. And all this will impact the atmosphere in the grounds as well, because if people aren't there, or if the game's been moved to times that really impact the atmosphere, we've seen 12:30 kickoffs be a prime example of that it all has a huge impact on it. But Everton have issued a statement to the Premier League. We'll see if the Premier League responds to this. But yeah, not enough notice being given either at this point. But we'll see how it goes. We'll move on. Willie Gnonto, Dan James, Joe Piroe have all had their minutes massively reduced this year versus last year now. And there's different circumstances on it. Dan James has had his fair share of injuries this season, so that's a major contributing factor to his lack of minutes. But from Willie Gnonto and Dan James' perspective, both of them have seen their minutes massively reduced from last year and have had to be happy with a place on the bench and kicking their heels a little bit, waiting for their opportunities. Gnonto, for his part, though, has shown this season that when he has been introduced, he has been a bit of a live wire. He's increased the tempo of games and he's shown that he can be an impact player for Leeds United. But those performances from Gnonto haven't led to any starts on the back of them, which has been a bit frustrating at times. When Noah Okafor's been out of the side, Daniel Farke has opted for either an additional midfielder like Anton Stach in that position, bringing Ilya Gruev in, or playing Lucas Mecha behind Dominic Calvert-Lewin in that wide left position, when there's a very obvious like-for-like replacement in Willie Gnonto. Piroe's situation, slightly different. He's gone from being an ever-present in the Leeds United side to barely featuring, and the only starts he's had since 2026 are either FA Cup matches or his international debut at the weekend. The issue for him is more a case of he's not a target man, and Leeds play with a target man system right now. But there are situations where he probably could have played over the course of this year. And all of this stuff, we know it increases the speculation around these players' futures, around potential moves away from the summer, about clubs being linked with them, and general unhappiness potentially. Again, a lot of it is just rumour, but it still mumbles around the place. Because of this, BBC's Adam Pope believes that this is down to the system change that Leeds United have implemented this season. And he believes that all three are just purely victims of that new Leeds United system. And when Gabby Goodmunson and Jayden Bogle are deployed in wide areas, where do these guys fit in? Adam said this: "There's no doubt that Gnonto's progress has stalled, but you do wonder with this system currently being employed is limiting the minutes to him being an impact substitute. Where does he fit when Jayden Bogle and Gabby Goodmunson are deployed either side of that back three? You can argue that the others like Dan James and Joe Piroe are in a similar boat." Now, there are obvious exceptions to this, and there are things that should be done or could be done when it comes to Leeds United system, but it all depends on the approach, and that's the big part going into the end of this season of what Leeds' approach will be to the last remaining games. Willie Gnonto, as I say, for me, is a like-for-like replacement for Noah Okafor. If Okafor's not doing the business, you can play Gnonto there. He's played in the central area, he's played in the wild area, he can be direct, he can find a pass, he's got a cracking shot on him as well. He's a good attacking option. Piroe does his absolute best in a front two. We talked all last year about if Leeds ever get to a front two, Joe Piroe comes into his own. But when Leeds have played with a front two this year, Joe Piroe hasn't been used, and he's been deployed in that weird floating 10 position when he does come off the bench. And from a Dan James perspective, he's been deployed as a right wing back for Wales fairly effectively when he has played there. So if Leeds wanted to be more attacking in certain games, you've got that option of playing Dan James as a wing back as well. So there are options that Leeds could use to get these players in, especially off the bench, getting them more minutes, more regular minutes, rotating that squad a little bit more as well, and keeping opposition sides guessing around what Leeds United are going to do. But this run into the season, every single player is going to need to play their part, and making sure that they're sharp and involved and positively involved is going to be a real factor in this as well. But you can, again, let me know your thoughts on them. But for me, Willie Gnonto should be playing a lot more football than he is. Personal preference, absolutely. Let's move on. We'll jump into the latest rumour mill and back page rumours and gossip around Leeds United. And Hayden Hackney, who was linked with Leeds United about a month ago by Alan Nixon, has been linked with Leeds United yet again, according to a report from Yahoo Sport, who would not be the most credible of organisations when it comes to linking players with moves. But they say that Leeds United are front runners and primarily placed to sign Hayden Hackney from Middlesbrough this summer and are likely to make a move. Now, this will depend on Middlesbrough's situation. They're currently second in the Championship and pushing for that automatic spot. However, over the last couple of months, Ipswich have closed that gap massively. Borough are 2 points ahead of Ipswich, but Ipswich have got a game in hand. So if they win that game in hand, Ipswich goes second, and Middlesbrough just continue to drop if they're getting so close to that top spot before they lost to Coventry. From Hackney's perspective, he's 23 years of age. He's been ranked as one of the best midfielders in the Championship this season at a very young age. And he's also captain of Middlesbrough. So there are leadership qualities there and does show the player's maturity. As I say, a lot of this will depend on what happens. But Southampton have snuck into that Championship playoff race as well. So if Borough end up in the playoffs, it's not going to be a straightforward path to the Premier League. They may have missed out on their best opportunity to get into the Premier League. Now, there's still plenty of games left in the Championship, and they could very much solidify that second place. But they've got work to do And Hackney's contract runs till 2027. So if they don't get promoted this year, he's got a year and a bit left on his contract. You would imagine at that point, well, a year left on his contract, you'd imagine at that point they try and sell while he's still got a decent amount of value. And there are lots of clubs interested in him, not just Leeds, so there's possibility that Leeds aren't even interested in him. But again, we'll keep note of it. We'll track it and we'll see at the end of the season when the actual moves start happening if any of these places have been right. We'll see. Anyway, folks, enjoy the rest of your day. We might have a podcast today or tomorrow, likely tonight at some point. You can check that out later on. You can check out the Sunday sessions myself and Alex had yesterday, as well as the Saturday news around Leeds United's new director, Andreas Drakopoulos. You can check all that out on the channel if you want. It's all linked down below. Outside that, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll talk to you later. See ya. Bye.